The Little Prince, Part 1. Once, when I was 6 years old, I came across a picture in a book about the jungle. It showed a big snake swallowing an animal. The book said that snakes swallow their prey whole. This image stayed with me, and I decided to draw my own version. I made my first drawing, which I thought was very impressive. I showed it to the adults, asking if it scared them. They told me, why would we be scared of a hat? But it wasn't a hat at all. It was supposed to be a snake digesting an elephant. I tried to explain it, but the adults couldn't figure it out. They told me to give up drawing and focus on something useful, like math or geography. So, I stopped drawing and went on with other things. I became a pilot and traveled all around the world. I met many people, but they always thought like adults. They only cared about important things like money, houses, or work. No one understood my drawing. For a long time, I felt lonely. I was always looking for someone who could understand me. But I never found that person until I met the Little Prince. The Little Prince, Part 2. Years passed, and I continued flying planes all around the world. Then one day, something unexpected happened. I was flying over the Sahara Desert when my plane broke down. There was no one around to help me, and I had no choice but to fix the engine myself. I was thousands of miles from any human being, alone in the vast desert. With just a little water and food, I knew I had to act quickly. As I tried to repair the engine, I heard a voice. It was soft but clear. "Please, draw me a sheep," the voice said. I was so surprised that I looked around in every direction, but I couldn't see anyone. Then, out of nowhere, a small boy appeared, standing right in front of me. He looked nothing like anyone I'd ever seen before. He wasn't scared, lost, or even worried about being in the middle of the desert. He just stood there, waiting for his sheep. I was stunned. "What are you doing here?" I asked him. But he didn't answer my question. He just repeated, "Please, draw me a sheep." I had never drawn a sheep before, and I was still busy dealing with the plane. But there was something about the boy that made me want to do as he asked. So, I pulled out my paper and pen and got down to work. I showed him my drawing, but he didn't like it. No. "This one is too sick," he said. "Please, try again." I made another drawing. "This one is too old," he said, shaking his head. By now, I was running out of ideas, so I quickly drew a box with small holes in it. "Here," I said. "Your sheep is inside this box." To my surprise, his face lit up with joy. "That's perfect," he exclaimed. "This is exactly the sheep I wanted." And just like that, the Little Prince and I became friends. The Little Prince, Part 3. As days went by, I slowly got to know the Little Prince. He didn't come from Earth. He told me about his home, a tiny planet called asteroid B612. It was so small that he could walk around it in just a few minutes. Every day, he would watch sunsets, sometimes as many as 44 in one day, because all he had to do was move his chair around to face the sun again. The Little Prince explained that his planet had 3 small volcanoes, 2 active and 1 extinct. "But you never know," he said. "So I always clean them out to keep them working well." He also told me about the baobab's huge trees that, if left to grow, could take over his whole planet. So, every morning, the prince would carefully pull up any small baobab sprouts that appeared. "It's a lot of work," he said, "but if you don't get rid of them early, they'll take over everything." But the thing the Little Prince talked about the most was a flower. It wasn't just any flower. It was special to him. One day, a rose had suddenly appeared on his planet, unlike any other plant he had seen before. She was beautiful, but proud. She asked for constant attention, complaining about the weather and insisting that he protect her under a glass dome at night. The little prince cared deeply for her, but he wasn't sure if she loved him back. "I didn't understand her then," he said softly, looking down. "I should have appreciated her more." He felt guilty for leaving her alone, and his heart was filled with sadness as he thought about the rose and how he had misunderstood her. The Little Prince, Part 4. The little prince didn't stay on his small planet forever. One day, he decided to set out on a journey to explore other worlds. He wanted to learn more and understand things beyond his own tiny home. "I was too young to understand love," he told me. "So, I left her." He visited several other planets, each with a single inhabitant. The first was ruled by a king who claimed to reign over everything. The little prince was puzzled because the king's planet was so small and there was hardly anything to rule over. But he was lonely, the prince said, and believed he could control things just to feel important. The next planet was home to a vain man. He wanted everyone to look up to him and admire him all the time. "Clap for me," the man would say over and over. But the little prince didn't understand why someone would need so much praise. He was the only person on his planet, the prince explained, yet he was always seeking attention. On the third planet, the little prince met a drunkard. This man drank to forget that he was ashamed of drinking. It was a sad cycle, and the little prince quickly felt sorry for him. He was stuck, the prince said, shaking his head. He couldn't get out of his own problems. The fourth planet was inhabited by a businessman. The man spent his days counting up the stars, believing they all belonged to him. "I own them all," he said proudly. "But what do you do with them?" the prince asked. "And then I write down the numbers in my books." The businessman didn't really understand the value of the stars. He just wanted to own as many things as possible. The little prince couldn't understand why these grown-ups were so obsessed with things that didn't make them happy. They were all caught up in their own worlds, he told me. None of them saw what was really important. The Little Prince, Part 5. After visiting the businessman, the little prince arrived at the fifth planet. This one was the smallest of all. It was just enough space for a street lamp and a lamplighter. The little prince was curious about this planet and its single inhabitant. "Good morning," said the little prince. "Why do you keep lighting and putting out your lamp?" The lamplighter replied, "It's my job. Every minute, I have to light up the lamp and then put it out again. My planet is so small that every minute, a day passes. So, I must keep turning the lamp on and off." The little prince thought this was a strange job, but admired the lamplighter's dedication. Unlike the king, the vain man, or the businessman, the lamplighter wasn't selfish. He wasn't caught up in power, admiration, or ownership. He was just doing his job. The lamplighter is the only grown-up I could have been friends with, the little prince thought. But his planet is too small, and there's no space for both of us. After some time, the little prince continued his journey. As he left, he felt a bit sad. The lamplighter seemed kind and responsible, but he was stuck in a routine, just like the other adults the little prince had met. "Grown-ups are very strange," he said to himself as he flew to the next planet. The Little Prince, Part 6. The little prince's next stop was the sixth planet. It was much larger than the others, and on it lived a geographer, an old man who wrote thick books. "Oh, a traveler," the geographer exclaimed when he saw the little prince. "Where have you come from?" The little prince was excited to meet someone who might know a lot about the planets. "What do you do here?" he asked. "I am a geographer," said the old man. "I study where mountains, rivers, and cities are. I write about them in books." The little prince looked around the planet and asked, "Do you explore yourself?" "Oh no," the geographer replied. "I don't have time to go out and explore. I rely on explorers to bring in information, and then I record it." The little prince found this strange. "But how do you know if the explorers are telling the truth?" "That's why I'll wait for them to prove their honesty," the geographer explained. "It's important to be accurate. I only write about things that are permanent mountains, oceans. We don't record things like flowers, because they don't last forever." Hearing this made the little prince sad. He thought of his flower, which he had left behind on his planet. "My flower is important because she's unique. She may not last forever, but that doesn't make her any less real." Of course, said the geographer, distracted. "Tell me about your planet." The little prince told the geographer about his home, about the volcanoes, and his flower. But the geographer was only interested in the volcanoes because they were permanent. "You should visit Earth," the geographer suggested. "It's a fascinating planet with many things to study." The little prince decided it was time to leave, but as he flew away, he couldn't stop thinking about his flower. "Grown-ups really don't understand what's important," he thought sadly. The Little Prince, Part 7. The little prince's next destination was Earth. It was a vast planet with many different kinds of landscapes and life. When he first arrived, he found himself in the middle of a desert. There was no one around. He began to wonder if the geographer was wrong about this planet being interesting. After walking for a long time, the little prince came across a flower. "Good morning," he said politely. "Good morning," the flower replied. "Where are the people?" asked the little prince. The flower didn't know. "I haven't seen any. I'm just a flower, so I don't travel. But I think there are only a few people in this world. They pass by quickly, like the wind." The little prince sighed and continued his journey. He climbed a high mountain, hoping to see the whole planet from the top. But all he saw was more mountains and sky. He felt very small and lonely. "Hello," he called out, hoping to hear a response. But only his echo came back. "This is a strange planet," the little prince thought. "The people must be very quiet. I've called out, and they only repeat what I say." He set off again, walking across the land, feeling unsure about what to do next. Eventually, he reached a road and followed it until he came to a garden full of roses. There were hundreds, maybe thousands of them. The little prince was shocked. "They look just like my flower," he said aloud. His heart sank. He had always believed that his flower was unique, the only one of her kind in the universe. Now he saw that there were so many others just like her. The little prince sat down on the ground, feeling very sad. "My flower told me she was special, and I believed her. But she's just like all these roses," he whispered. "I thought I had something unique." At that moment, a fox appeared. "Hello," said the fox. "Hello," replied the little prince without much enthusiasm. "Come and play with me," said the fox. "I'm feeling lonely." "I can't play with you," the little prince said. "I'm looking for friends. What does tame mean?" "It means to form a bond," said the fox. "If you tame me, we'll meet each other. To you, I'll be like no other fox, And to me, you'll be like no other boy. We'll become special to each other." The little prince thought about this for a while. "I think I understand," he said. "I had a flower. I believe she was the only one in the universe. But now I see that there are many like her." "That's because you haven't tamed her," the fox explained. "When you tame someone, they become unique because of the time and care you've shared." The little prince was silent, but he began to understand what the fox was saying. The Little Prince, Part 8. The little prince continued his conversation with the fox, feeling a bit lighter and more hopeful. He realized that what mattered was not how many other roses there were, but the special bond he had with his own flower. The next day, the little prince left the garden and walked to a small village. He saw many people walking around, busy with their daily lives. He was curious about them but felt a bit overwhelmed. He wondered if he would find anything new or if these people would be too busy to notice him. As he wandered through the village, he met a merchant selling beautiful, shiny objects. The merchant was very focused on his work, arranging and polishing his goods. "Hello," said the little prince. "What are these things?" "These are jewels and trinkets," the merchant replied without looking up. "They're valuable and beautiful. People want them because they believe they'll make them happy." The little prince looked at the objects, but he didn't feel much excitement. "Do they make people happy?" he asked. "Some people think so," said the merchant. "But often they just want more. They never seem satisfied. They keep buying and buying." The little prince felt a bit sad. He had learned on his journey that people often chase after things they think will make them happy, but they are rarely content. As he continued exploring the village, he came across a well. He saw a man drawing water from it. The man looked tired but smiled when he saw the little prince. "Hello," said the little prince. "I'm traveling, and I've met many people. Do you like your work?" The man smiled warmly. "Yes, I do. It's not glamorous, but I find joy in it. Each time I draw water, I think of it as helping people. It gives me a sense of purpose." The little prince admired the man's contentment. He realized that happiness didn't always come from shiny objects or grand achievements. Sometimes it was found in simple, meaningful tasks and connections with others. The little prince thanked the man and moved on. He continued his journey through the village, thinking about what he had learned. He understood that the true value of life wasn't in possessions or status, but in the relationships and purpose we find along the way. The Little Prince, Part 9. The little prince left the village feeling thoughtful and reflective. He had learned much about people and their pursuits, and now he was eager to return to his planet and think about what he had discovered. As he walked away from the village, he noticed a beautiful garden filled with colorful flowers. He was reminded of his own rose and felt a pang of longing. The garden was full of roses, and they all looked so similar to his own. He knelt down to admire them, feeling both a sense of connection and a little sadness. A gentle breeze blew through the garden, and the little prince heard a soft voice. "Hello," it said. He looked around and saw a wise old gardener tending to the flowers. "Hello," said the little prince. "I'm traveling and learning about the world. What do you think about these roses?" The gardener smiled kindly. "Each rose is unique, even if they look similar. It's the care and love you give to each one that makes it special." The little prince thought about the fox's lesson about love and friendship. He realized that his own rose was special because he had taken care of it and loved it. The gardener's words made him feel more at peace with his feelings. "Thank you," said the little prince. "I understand now that it's not just about how things look, but about how much we care for them." The gardener nodded. "Yes, it's the love and attention we give that makes things meaningful. Remember that, and you will always find happiness." With a warm farewell, the little prince left the garden and continued on his journey. He felt a renewed sense of clarity and comfort, knowing that the lessons he had learned would help him understand and appreciate the things he loved most. As he prepared to return to his planet, he thought about the connections he had made and the insights he had gained. He knew that he would carry these lessons with him always, and that they would help him grow and find true happiness in his own life. The Little Prince, Part 10. The little prince arrived back at his planet, feeling a mix of excitement and nostalgia. His journey had been long and full of lessons, but he was glad to be home. The sight of his tiny planet, with its 3 volcanoes and beloved rose, brought him comfort. As he approached his rose, he noticed that it looked a bit wilted. He felt a pang of concern. "Oh no," he said softly. "I've been away for so long, and my rose may need my care." The rose, sensing his presence, looked up and smiled weakly. "Welcome back," she said. "I've missed you." The little prince knelt beside her and gently watered her. He talked to her about the people he had met and the things he had learned. As he cared for his rose, he realized how much he had missed her and how important she was to him. While tending to the rose, the little prince thought about the fox's lesson about love. He understood now that his rose's beauty was not just in her appearance, but in the time and love he had given her. His rose was special because of the bond they shared. The little prince spent his days taking care of his planet, enjoying the company of his rose, and reflecting on his journey. He felt a deep sense of contentment, knowing that he had learned valuable lessons and returned to a place that was truly special to him. One day, a shooting star flew across the sky, and the little prince made a wish. He wished for all the people he had met to find happiness and understanding, just as he had. He felt hopeful and at peace, knowing that his journey had made him wiser and more appreciative of the simple, precious things in life. As the days went by, the little prince continued to care for his rose and his planet, cherishing every moment. He knew that life was a journey of learning and growth, and he was grateful for the experiences that had shaped him. And so, the little prince lived happily on his planet, content with his newfound wisdom and the love he had for his rose. He knew that, despite the challenges, he had found what truly mattered in life, and that was a source of great joy. The Little Prince, Part 11. The little prince's life on his tiny planet had settled into a gentle rhythm. Each day, he tended to his rose and took time to reflect on his experiences. His planet, though small, felt full of meaning and joy. One morning, as he was watering his rose, he saw a tiny spaceship landing gently on his planet. Curious and excited, the little prince approached the spaceship. Out stepped a visitor, a little girl with bright eyes and a cheerful smile. "Hello," she said with enthusiasm. "I'm a traveler like you. I've been to many places and learned so much. I wanted to visit your planet and see what makes it special." The little prince was delighted to meet someone new. He invited the girl to join him on a tour of his planet. He showed her his 3 volcanoes, the tiny baobabs, and the beautiful rose that he cared for so deeply. As they walked around, the little prince shared stories about his travels and the lessons he had learned. The little girl listened with interest and asked many questions. She was particularly curious about the fox's lesson on love and the importance of time spent with loved ones. The little prince explained, "The fox taught me that love means making time for the ones you care about. It's about seeing beyond appearances and appreciating the moments you share." The little girl nodded thoughtfully. "That's a beautiful lesson. It's something I try to remember on my travels. Connecting with others and cherishing those connections is what makes life meaningful." As the day went on, the little prince and the little girl grew close. They laughed, shared stories, and enjoyed each other's company. The little prince was happy to have someone with whom he could share his planet and the wisdom he had gained. As the sun began to set, the little girl prepared to leave. She thanked the little prince for his hospitality and the wonderful day. "I will always remember this visit," she said. "Your planet is truly special." The little prince waved goodbye as the little girl's spaceship took off into the sky. He felt a warm glow in his heart, knowing that his planet had been a place of joy and learning for another traveler. After she left, the little prince sat by his rose and reflected on the day's events. He realized that sharing his experiences and making new connections enriched his life even more. He felt grateful for the opportunity to learn from others and to share his own journey. And so, the little prince continued his peaceful life on his planet, welcoming new visitors and cherishing the connections he made. He understood that every encounter was a chance to grow and to spread the wisdom he had gained on his journey. The Little Prince, Part 12. Time passed, and the little prince continued to look after his rose, watch the sunsets, and reflect on the many lessons he had learned. His planet, though small, was a place of quiet peace, and each day felt meaningful to him. One evening, while sitting on his little chair and watching the stars, the little prince felt a sense of longing. He missed the people he had met during his travels, the fox, the pilot, the lamplighter, and even the businessman. Each one had taught him something important about life, love, and responsibility. "I wonder how they are doing," he thought to himself. "I wonder if they remember me as I remember them." With this thought in mind, the little prince decided to take one more journey. He prepared his small spaceship, filled a watering can for his rose, and set off into the stars. This time, he wasn't looking for answers. He simply wanted to reconnect with the friends he had made and to see how they were. His first stop was the planet of the lamplighter. As he landed, he saw the lamplighter busily lighting his lamp, as he always did. The little prince smiled at the familiar sight and called out, "Hello, my friend. How have you been?" The lamplighter looked up in surprise and then smiled warmly. "Ah, little prince, it's been so long. I am still here, lighting my lamp every evening, as is my duty. And you? Have you continued your journey?" The little prince nodded. "Yes, I've traveled to many places and met many people. But I've come back to see how you are and to remind you of the lessons we learned." The lamplighter paused and said thoughtfully, "You once told me that I was the only one on my planet who thought of something other than myself. That thought has stayed with me. Now, when I light my lamp, I think of all the other lamps in the universe and the people they bring light to. It gives me a sense of purpose." The little prince was pleased to hear this. He spent some time with the lamplighter, sharing stories of his adventures and enjoying the quiet, steady rhythm of the lamplight flickering in the twilight. Before long, it was time to move on. The little prince said goodbye and promised to visit again. Next, the little prince visited the businessman. When he arrived, the businessman was still counting stars, scribbling numbers in his notebook. But when he saw the little prince, he stopped and looked up with a smile. Little Prince. What a surprise. It's been so long, the businessman said. The little prince looked at the piles of notebooks filled with numbers. Are you still counting the stars? He asked gently. The businessman nodded. Yes, but your visit reminded me that the stars are not mine to own. I think about what you said, and now, when I count them, I also take time to enjoy their beauty. They remind me that life is about more than numbers. It's about appreciating the world around us. The little prince was glad to hear this. He spent some time with the businessman, talking about the importance of seeing beyond the surface of things and appreciating the beauty of the world. After leaving the businessman, the little prince visited other planets and reconnected with his old friends. Each one had grown in their own way, and their meetings were filled with warmth and laughter. Finally, the little prince returned to his planet. As he landed, his rose was waiting for him, her delicate petals shimmering in the sunlight. Did you have a good journey? The rose asked, her voice soft and sweet. Yes, the little prince replied. I visited my friends and saw how they were doing. They've all learned so much. It made me realize that we are all growing, just like you, my rose. The little prince continued to care for his rose, but now he felt a deeper sense of connection to the universe and to the friends he had made along the way. He knew that even though he was on his own small planet, he was never truly alone. His friendships and the lessons he had learned would always stay with him, lighting up his heart like the stars in the sky.